Hello, everyone. Welcome to Suspense Magazine. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn, and I'm here today with best-selling and award-winning author Alex Segura to talk about his new release, Alter Ego. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Tracy. Good to be here.
We're very happy to have you here. Alter Ego, I enjoyed very much. I read it before reading your the first book, which is Secret Identity.
Oh, cool.
So, as we talk about this, you'll understand. I think a lot of readers will understand that you can read it out of sequence.
That's
Um,
actually great to hear that you were
yeah,
able to enjoy it as a standalone.
yeah, it's such an original concept. I'd never read anything like it. We'll talk a little bit more about how this plays into it's not only Secret Identity, but a comic that you also
Mhm.
wrote in conjunction with this. So that was pretty cool to find out. But why don't you get us started, Alex, if you don't mind, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I was born and raised in Miami. I worked in the comic book industry for a long time as a publicist, a marketing person, an editor, and writer. My first novel, Silent City, which was part of the Pete Fernandez series or quintet of Miami murder mysteries, came out in 2013 and was reissued by Polis in 2016, and they released the subsequent four books after that. Um, Secret Identity, my last crime novel, won the LA Times Book Prize in mystery thriller, and Alter Ego, which comes out tomorrow. I don't know when this is releasing, but it's coming out tomorrow
Yeah.
in my time. It it's a standalone sequel, is what we're calling it, to Secret
Yes.
Identity. And I've written a lot of comic books for places like Marvel and DC, and Dark Horse and Archie, and so yeah, this is kind of a love letter to all the things that I think about all the time.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is. And I don't read comic books. I used to whenever I was
Hmm.
younger. I would read Archie and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, but I haven't read them in ages and ages. But it was really interesting as I was reading through the book, all the different references you made, and I didn't ever feel lost or anything like
Oh,
that.
good.
And but it made me realize what such a big universe it is. Um, and can you let us know, and this is more for my
Hmm.
clarification more than anything, what the difference between a comic and a graphic novel is, or is there any difference?
There isn't. It's just the
Okay.
terms are interchangeable. I think graphic novel came into vogue when people just didn't want to say comic books, but really graphic novel was a shorthand for either an original graphic novel, which was a full-size collection length story that was mainly geared towards the book market, or a reprint of previously serialized
Okay.
comic book issues into like a collected edition. So it's just a fancy way of saying comic book. It's all kind of the same bucket.
Yes. Kind of re just kind of gives it a new life, I suppose, huh? Just like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
like to do that with the English language. We get
for
to, we
sure.
yeah, it's so yeah, okay, thank you for clarifying
No
that for me
problem.
because I was trying to figure it out and I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I think you could use those terms pretty
Okay.
interchangeably. I think a lot of people think of comic books as like the floppy, like single issue you would get on the
Yeah.
newsstand or in a comic shop, but those are also graphic novels. So
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, can you tell us when the writing bug actually hit you? Is that something that you've always been doing, even as a young lad, or is this something that piqued your interest as an adult?
yeah, it was always something that even before I really knew what I was doing, I wanted to tell stories. I would like kind of draw or write my own little comic books as a kid, or write little fan fiction stories that I didn't really fully understand were prose, but were prose. I was a big Sherlock Holmes reader, a big comic book reader, a lot of sci-fi stuff. So I was always thinking about not only creating my own stories, but adding to these kind of mythologies. And I think it kind of died down for a time, as I got to college and started pursuing like journalism as a professional career. And I thought, okay, well, this will be my way to write professionally. But then I got back into creative writing, and that's when it became a thing for me.
Great. Great, great. Yeah, and I think I even read that you worked on your school newspaper at one
Yeah.
point too. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I worked on my college newspaper for, yeah, as long as I was there. I was the news editor, then the editor in chief for a while, and I was really involved in like the yearbook in high school, and I was into the media stuff.
Nice. Well, sounds like you found your calling early on
Yeah.
and pursued it, and that's great. Not everybody figures that out so young, you know?
No, it's a blessing. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Well, can you give us a brief description of Alter Ego?
Sure. Alter Ego is a murder mystery. It's a thriller set in the comic book in today's comic book industry, and it follows its protagonist, Annie Bustamante, who is a former comic book artist. She gained some acclaim and some sales and attention about 10 years prior to the story, and left abruptly due to personal reasons and fell into film. Became a storyboard artist, and then that evolved into becoming a director. And when we find her at the beginning of Alter Ego, she's between projects. She's moved back to New York with her preteen daughter. Um, because her last film project was shelved for tax reasons, and she's kind of waiting for her agent to call and tell her what's next. But we learned very quickly that she has a passion for comics, and she's doing what I guess we could call a fan comic of this character based on this character that she grew up reading called the Legendary Lynx, this very obscure 1970s superhero that was published and then basically disappeared from the media landscape. And she's been pecking away at this project for fun, just between bigger things, when she learns that a company called Triumph Entertainment has risen from the ashes and is claiming to own the Lynx and all the related Triumph Comics characters. And they want Annie, who has made no secret of her love for the character and its impact on her, to basically relaunch the Lynx for modern readers and to work in tandem with a disgraced film director, Arturo Spinoza, who is going to be part of their plans to do a multimedia campaign to reinvigorate this universe of characters and IP, and really make a play for a Marvel-like cinematic universe, or media universe. So at first she's intrigued, and she's gung ho about it. It's an opportunity to work on this character that really was the main reason she is a storyteller. But as she gets further into it and starts meeting with the people involved, she starts to realize that maybe they don't understand what they have. And that's pretty standard sometimes. Not standard, but that happens sometimes with properties that have just been around longer than their creators have lived, that they just get passed on to
Mm.
other companies and bought up. But she starts to get an inkling that things are much more dangerous than she anticipated when she gets messages from an unencrypted account called Apparition. And if you're a fan of the Lynx, and she is, she knows that Apparition was the mentor to the Lynx and basically trained the character to become the hero that she becomes. And this messenger is telling her that she needs to be careful because she's getting involved with some dangerous people that are not really who they claim to be. And so that kicks off the thriller, and it ties into Secret Identity, which was my last crime novel. But I was very mindful to write them separately, in that you can read them individually and hopefully you get something out of them individually. If you read them together, you'll see how they click together. But Alter Ego can hopefully stand on its own as a modern day thriller.
Yeah. Yeah, and I found it really interesting how you tied in this legendary links
Mhm.
and it with your full length book. And can you tell us maybe drill down into that a little bit more? I had the PDF, so I don't have an actual book that I could hold up. And if you have
No
one,
worries.
feel free to do so. But
I do. I
um,
thought I did. No, it's not here now. Sorry.
I no, that's fine.
I thought it
No,
was
I
on my
just thought
nightstand.
it was so interesting how you'd be reading along, you turn the page, and then I'm not sure if I'm using the right term, but this panel of the
Hmm.
legendary links
Yeah.
that is discussed in the book. And then I also noticed on your website that you've published an
Yeah.
actual comic called The Legendary Links. And so I was wondering if you could talk to us a little
Sure.
bit how all that kind of came about.
Yeah, when I first pitched Secret Identity to my editor, Zach Wagman at Flatiron, I reached out to this artist, Sandy Jarrell, who obviously drew all these great comic sequences in the book and the comic itself. And I told him I wanted to show a proof of concept. of what this was going to look like. And that's really, I think, what kind of locked in the deal, I hope. But basically, the idea is that as you're reading the novel, whether it's Secret Identity or Alter Ego, you're getting pulled into the work being done in the novel. So in Alter Ego, you're getting to see samples of the pages Annie is creating in the book in to create this comic book, and so you're seeing little snippets of it. And the hope is that it doesn't just feel like interstitial vamping, but actually echoes of the main storyline. And you see the Lynx, Claudia Kala, awakens and she doesn't know who she is anymore. And so it's this journey of discovery for her to become the Lynx again. And it kind of runs parallel with Annie's quest to figure out the true origins of the Lynx character. Um, and one of the things that happened while we were doing Secret Identity and creating those interstitial pages for Secret Identity is that Sandy and I kept saying, there's a full comic book in here, because when you read Secret Identity and Alter Ego, it tells you in the captions like, oh, excerpt from issue number whatever and release date. And so when we were able to get funding for that, we created the full first four issues of the Lynx, and now it's a standalone uh, publication. And what we did with that is we tried to keep it as tongue in cheek as possible. So we were treating it like this is the lost reprint of these old Triumph Comics issues that have been out of print for decades and thought they were, lost to the sands of time. And we even had J.M. DeMatteis, who is a beloved, acclaimed comic book writer, write the intro to the collection and say, the Lynx was a huge influence on my work. So we're really trying to we it's funny. We basically manifested this character
Yeah.
almost into comic book history, which has been really gratifying. And it owes a big debt to Cavalier and Clay, obviously, which is Michael Chabon's great Golden Age comic book literary novel. But he also did comic books based on the escapist character from that book, and they produced it and treated it very much in world. So I don't want to claim that we're the first to do it. I think we're the first to do it in the novel, where you're reading the novel and hopping into the
Yeah.
comic. But yeah, and
It
Sandy is
was,
just the perfect artist for it. He's able to kind of shift styles and really make it his own.
yeah, it was such an interesting and unique concept. It just kind of blows my mind that um, the kind of the sequence that happened, how all of this came about, where
Yeah.
and now you've got this graphic. I wonder with whenever you wrote Secret Identity before the Lynx comic came out, did you
Hmm.
have readers looking for the comic, or did all do I have the
Yeah, it's
timing on it
funny.
wrong?
It's funny because one of the best kind of emails I ever got, I get emails from readers and they'll say, I read Secret Identity, I loved it, and then I've been looking for issues of the Lynx and I can't find it. So I think there's a desire to believe that
Yeah.
these are real comics.
Well, you did your job then, I guess, as a as a fiction writer, right? You
Yeah.
made them believe that that this superhero existed. So I thought
Yeah,
that's
the artist
really
Sandy Jarrell said somebody came up to him and said, "Well, what did you do to kind of refine and fix Doug Detmer's artwork when you were remastering these pages?" And Doug is the fictional artist
right,
of the original Link stories. So it's cool. I think people want to believe that this happened, and I'm more than happy. We're not trying to trick anyone. It's
right.
not, it's just like a knowing metafictional thing.
Yeah, it's great. What do you hope readers take away from this trio of stories, if anything?
Um, yeah, I think I'm not a theme writer in that I don't think about the theme before I write the book. I kind of see it in the rearview mirror after something comes out. And I hope that they realize the wonder of comics still exists. It's a very wondrous and exciting medium to create in. I hope first and foremost that they're entertained, that they got two fun page turners and a cool graphic novel that fits into this world. Um, but these are stories about, characters reclaiming their legacy in some way. They're both Carmen and Annie are both presented with their dreams, but the dreams are presented with caveats. Carmen
Mhm.
can create a character, but it has to be in secret. Annie is given an opportunity to revive a character, but she has to do it under the terms of the company that has the rights. And so it's like, how do you overcome these challenges to really achieve and become the person you hope to be?
Hmm. I really love that you have these two female characters in what I always thought of as a male dominated industry, and I could be completely wrong about that, but I felt like that was a really special way to go about telling these stories.
Yeah, I mean I don't think either story would work if it was a man as the protagonist. I don't think, they wouldn't have asked the man to write the character or not
Yeah,
to create the character anonymously. And
true.
Annie, if she was a male character, would not have faced some of the stuff she goes through in the novel. So I think it's important to diversify the characters that are starring in these books.
You had mentioned it earlier about the tax write-off, and after I read it in the book, I was sitting there, I'm like, does that really happen? Does
Yeah,
Hollywood really do that? They make the entire movie, it's done, and then they just, you know, change of management, whatever it is, they just decide, oh, we're going to write it off. I
yeah, they'll
just
make more money just writing it off. It's
I just
insane. It's yeah,
heartbreaking, just
yeah,
heartbreaking. Could you imagine as an author, going through writing your book, getting it ready, you have it in your hands, and then all of a
yeah. It's a
sudden they
nightmare.
tell you it's never going to show up on the bookshelves. I just
Yeah, yeah. You can't even
amazing.
fathom it. But yeah, it's happened before. It happened recently with a superhero movie. Yeah.
Oh gosh, wow. So, for those of us who aren't familiar with how a comic book is produced, would you mind just briefly walking us through the process? Is it completely different than a than an actual book, or is it fairly similar?
Yeah, it's much more collaborative. I mean,
Mhm.
I liken it more to playing in a band as opposed to being isolated and coming up with everything on your own. And you're really working through the chain. I write a script or a page breakdown, and then the artist gets it and starts doing their part, and then the colorist lays over their colors, and the letterer then lays over the script. And it's the kind of thing where you're really intimately collaborating with another creator as opposed to just putting your vision on the prose page, which also gets edited and tweaked, and your agent looks at it, and people give you notes and all that. But it's a different kind of process.
Mm.
When you hand someone a novel, it's a pretty complete thing that you put a lot of time and effort into. And the people giving input are giving notes on your voice, whereas with a comic book, you're collaborating to create that voice together, which is very
Okay,
different. So it
interesting.
becomes like when I decide, is this a novel or is this a comic? It becomes selfishly like, do I want to play with others, or is this the kind of idea that I really need to be doing completely myself?
Okay, all right, that makes sense. That question did cross through my mind as I was coming up with some thoughts for you. It's like, well, I wonder how you decide what's going to be a novel versus what is going to be a comic. And so that's very interesting.
Yeah, I say that, and then my last two novels have involved comics, so they are more
True.
collaborative than your average novels. But I think that's the idea, kind of
Yeah.
bringing those worlds together. And I've gotten comic book fans who say they're not big novel readers, who then say, Secret Identity has pulled me into it, and also vice versa, mystery readers who are familiar with my novel work, who come in and read the comic sequences and then are intrigued to read more comics. So I think doing stuff like this helps bring in other mediums to people that maybe aren't as familiar with them.
Yeah. I love how you meshed your two worlds together. It's
Yeah, yeah.
so
Thank you.
unique, so very cool. So if I've never read a comic before, which one would you recommend and why? And don't be shy about recommending your own work.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I mean, obviously, if you like Alter Ego and Secret Identity, you should check out the Legendary Links graphic novel. I think it's a nice companion piece to those two, and it really echoes the narrative there. It really depends on what you like. Comics, I think, are often mistaken as a genre, and they're not a genre. It's a medium. You can tell any kind of story in that format. Like you can read a superhero murder mystery like Watchmen, which is one of the most acclaimed graphic novels in history. But if you're not a superhero person, you can read something like Love and Rockets, which is a 40-year saga told by two brothers in different stories of two kind of ongoing narratives that cover like teenage punk rockers in California, or a fictional town in Latin America. Jaime and Gilbert Hernandez, like that's one of my favorite comics. It's a little bit hard to just figure out where to dive in, so I always tell people just pick a spot and dive in, and
Yeah.
you'll find your way. Um, yeah, those are the two that come top of mind.
All right. Thank you. So as we bring the interview to a close, what's next for you? Is you have any fun projects that you can talk about?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm finishing up a Daredevil novel, Daredevil, the Marvel superhero, and it's going to be a crime novel coming out next year from Hyperion Avenue and Disney Books, and that'll be exciting. And it's a gritty noir story featuring one of Marvel's most iconic street level heroes. And I just put together kind of the basics for my next standalone crime novel that will be a little bit more of a organized crime mob. I'm calling it kind of the Godfather meets the Parallax View, and it feels very relevant to our times.
Nice, nice. Well, thanks a ton, Alex. I really
Oh, thanks
appreciate
for having
you.
me.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Alter Ego releases, as you said, tomorrow, December
Yeah.
3rd, in case folks are watching this at a later on. And Secret Identity and the Legendary Links, those are both available now. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Alex, where is the best place for readers to connect with you online?
You can find me on my website, alexsegura.com. I also have a Substack newsletter, alexsegura.substack.com. I'm also on Instagram, and I also have a Blue Sky and Threads. I'm not super duper active on either, but I'm there. And
Yeah.
if you want to find me, you can reach me in those ways.
All right, great. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for joining us on Suspense Magazine. Thanks again, Alex, and
Thank
goodbye,
you.
everyone. Take care.
Take care.